This video is about how to solve trig equations. Alright, so here's what we're going to do. You're going to be asked to find x. And what that means is find the angle or angles where a certain value occurs on the unit circle. Okay? So all the solutions you can find on the unit circle that fit the criteria, you list them. One full revolution in the unit circle, but don't use 2 pi. Okay, because that's the same as 0. So we just don't use both. Alright, so let's look at this. I'm going to solve for x, right? It's here, right here. So I need to kind of peel away all the layers till it's isolated. So I would subtract square root of 2 from both sides. So I have the sine of x, or 2 sine of x, equals negative square root of 2. Then I would divide both sides by 2. Sine of x equals negative square root of 2 over 2. So now I look at my unit circle, and yes, you can use a unit circle in this. So here's my unit circle, right? Well, if sine is negative, that means I'm down in quadrants 3 and 4. So I've isolated that, right? So I'm looking for the angles in quadrants 3 and 4 that have a sine. So here's what you're asking yourself. What is sine y, right? Where is the y negative square root of 2 over 2? What are those angles? Well, square root of 2 over 2 happens at the pi over 4 angle. So what's the pi over 4 angle down here? It's 5 pi over 4, and the one over here is 7 pi over 4. So this has 2 answers, okay? Let's try another one. Same idea. I'm going to add square root of 3 to both sides. 2 cosine x equals the square root of 3. Divide by 2. Cosine x equals the positive square root of 3 over 2. Okay, again, you're asking, where is the cosine square root of 3 over 2? Well, remember, cosine is x. So where are the x values positive square root of 3 over 2? So for x values to be positive, that means I'm in either at quadrant 1 or quadrant 4, right? So I can forget about this side of my unit circle. And I'm looking for the x values with square root of 3 over 2. Well, that's at very first, the ones closest to the x-axis have that value for x. So that angle would be, so pi over 6 and 11 pi over 6. Okay. So this one has 2 places where the cosine is positive square root of 3 over 2. Right? Let's try another one. 3 tangent squared x minus 1. First thing I want to do is add 1 to both sides. Then I would divide by 3. So I have the tangent squared x equals 1 over 3. Now, notice it's squared. How do you undo that? You take a square root. Now, one thing you need to be careful of, when you take the square root, you have positive and negative results. So I do that. What's the square root of 1? 1. What's the square root of 3? It's messy, so we leave it like that. Now we're forced to rationalize. So what I really have is plus or minus the square root of 3 over 3. Okay, so where is the tangent, positive or negative, square root of 3 over 3? Now, if you remember one of the tricks I told you about tangent, instead of having to calculate them every single time, if you remember that all the pi over 3 angles, whatever it is, pi over 3, the tangent's always plus or minus square root of 3. If it's a pi over 4 angle, it's either going to be plus or minus 1. If it's a pi over 6 angle, the tangent will be plus or minus square root of 3 over 3. So using that little trick, I'm going to list all the angles that have 6 in the denominator, and those angles have a tangent that is either positive or negative square root of 3 over 3. And I can go all the way around the unit circle because it's positive and negative ones, so it's all of them basically. So x would be pi over 6. Quadrant 2 would be 5 pi over 6. Quadrant 3 is 7 pi over 6. 4 is 11 pi over 6. So there's 4 solutions to this, okay? Anytime you have a positive or negative, you're going to have at least 4 solutions, right? Let's try another one. Secant squared x minus 4, all right? So add 4 to both sides. Secant squared x equals 4, all right? Now we take the square root again. So I know the secant of x is plus or minus, what's the square root of 4? It's a 2. Now, secant is not something you can just quickly look up on the unit circle. However, what's the reciprocal? What's the reciprocal of secant? It's cosine, right? So take the reciprocal of both sides. So if I take the reciprocal of secant, I get cosine. What's the reciprocal of 2? Well, it's 1/2, right? It's still plus or minus. I just took the reciprocal, all right, to find cosine, because cosine is quickly findable. That's your x-coordinates, right? And notice it's positive x's and negative x's. So which angles have an x-coordinate of 1/2? That's what I'm asking myself. So I look on my unit circle. Which ones have an x-coordinate of 1/2? So that's at the pi over 3 angle. So pi over 3, 2 pi over 3, 4 pi over 3, and 5 pi over 3. Those are the angles that have a 1/2 for a cosine. It's either positive or negative for answers. All right?